Okay, let's move on to the next participant on our agenda. My pleasure to welcome Bent Frandsen, the CEO of ExpreS2ion Biotech, the vaccine developer. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sten. And thank you to Aktiedagen for allowing me to present here in snowy Stockholm. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Bent Frandsen. I'm the CEO of ExpreS2ion Biotech, and I'll be giving a presentation with some forward-looking statements. So here's an initial disclaimer for that. ExpreS2ion Biotech is a biotech company which has a promising pipeline addressing high-value markets in excess of 45 billion euro. We are a leader in production of recombinant proteins using our proprietary production technology that we call ExpreS, which is based on a proprietary patented insect cell-based system. We have made more than 400 proteins since we started in 2010 for more than 100 customers and have a nice revenue out of this. Since 2017, we established a joint venture called AdaptVac, which has a proprietary virus-like particle technology, which is very advantageous for making effectful vaccines. The combination of making ExpreS-made antigens coupled to virus-like particles makes some very unique vaccines. And actually, these two technologies are the main components in our lead projects in our pipeline. Here we address fatal diseases such as COVID-19, malaria, breast cancer, and influenza. We have a nice revenue stream from our services business growing, and we're listed on Nasdaq First North Growth Market and have experienced an incredibly growth in our market value since the beginning of 2020. A more than 12-fold increase in our share price and more than 25-fold increase in our market value. So we're now valued around 1.5 billion Swedish krona. This is a pipeline as we depict it today, headed by the coronavirus vaccine, which we call ABNCoV2. It's combining SARS-CoV-2 antigens that we make in our ExpreS system with the VLP technology from AdaptVac. It's been fully out-licensed to Bavarian Nordic. They have exclusive global rights to commercialize this. And right now, this project is in clinical phase 2 and sponsored by Bavarian Nordic. And we're expecting results from this any day now here in December, as a matter of fact. We have our breast cancer vaccine project that we fully in-licensed from AdaptVac back in February this year. It's a unique vaccine against breast cancer, and we are right now conducting preclinical testing with this. Furthermore, we have influenza and malaria projects that I will also tell you more about. Let's take a look at these programs in some more details. First of all, the COVID-19 vaccine project. Of course, you all know it's a fatal disease. It has hit more than 5 million people around the world. We know there are vaccines available. We know those vaccines are not effective in the long run. We know they have to be stored in -20 to -80 degrees Celsius. We know that mutants are around. What we're trying to do with our technologies is addressing all this. Right now, just since last week, everybody are talking about the Omicron variant, which has surfaced in South Africa and Botswana. And this is a graph showing how the recent testing and the genetic sequencing of tests in various countries, and you can see Denmark and Sweden on top, are dominated fully, like all other countries, by the Delta variant. However, in South Africa, you see that the Omicron variant is taking over. So everybody are addressing this. And of course, from ExpreS2ion's point of view, of course, also we are looking into this variant using our ExpreS platform. And of course, with the coronavirus that Bavarian Nordic has the exclusive license to, this already is working very well against the Delta variant. And of course, there will also be measures taken to look at this related to the Omicron variant. The Coronavirus vaccine, I don't hesitate to call it the best since we obtained some really interesting preclinical data in 2020 when we started on this project. I want to focus on the graph here in the bottom middle, where you see the effect in generation of neutralizing antibodies, which means you can have a durable immune response. And you can see the triangular VLP-RBD, that's our vaccine. It's by far manyfold higher, the effect on neutralizing antibodies generation, compared with other vaccine technologies such as DNA or kill virus technologies, or even messenger RNA. That's why I've been very confident all along this project that we have a strong advantage with this. We have conducted a clinical phase 1/2 trial in 45 healthy volunteers in the Netherlands across 6 different doses from 6 to 70 microgram. And we've said in August, across all these doses, it's very safe and tolerable. And we have some very nice, interesting effect parameters to show as well. And as I said, it's fully out-licensed to Bavarian Nordic, who are now conducting a phase 2 trial and already got funding for a phase 3 trial to be initiated here in 2022. So this is the data that we have communicated both in August and then recently here in November, where we amended with the results from the 50 and 70 microgram doses. And you see a very interesting result of the induction of high neutralizing titers, increasing across the doses and actually reaching a plateau in the highest dose levels. Importantly, these highest dose levels from 25 to 70 microgram is actually a 12-fold higher level compared with people who have had the disease. That's very strong. As an example, the Pfizer-BioNTech reaches a 4-fold increase versus people who've been infected. We reach more than 12-fold, so that's strong. Furthermore, strong cross-neutralization across variants. Here you see to the right comparison versus Wuhan, Alpha, Beta, and Delta. Very strong neutralization of all these variants, and that's why I believe even with the Omicron, we may have also a good level here. As I said, Bavarian Nordic now run the ongoing development, and they have already announced how they're running the phase 2. Here they test actually 90 people with a 100 microgram dose, and that is going to be communicated very soon, the outcome of that first arm. A second arm will be another 90 people getting 50 microgram dose, and this is starting now. And then they have an arm with 30 people getting a 100 microgram dose. The last arm is actually in people who have not been vaccinated or had the disease before, whereas the first 2 arms with 150 microgram dose are in seropositive people who have been vaccinated or have had the disease. We are anxiously looking forward to the outcome of the first arm here in December. The relationship between Bavarian Nordic and AdaptVac and ExpreS2ion, I have to briefly describe here. AdaptVac has out-licensed the project to Bavarian Nordic and receiving sales and milestone payments and royalties of sales from Bavarian Nordic. ExpreS2ion has given AdaptVac the right through a license to under this license agreement, and we also get royalties and a double-digit royalty of AdaptVac income. So, and importantly, we own 34% of AdaptVac, which is a high value in our assessment. And looking at this, we have seen analysis from Aktiesparernes Analyseguiden and Pareto Securities. Granted, these are sponsored by ourselves, but we see these analytical reports estimating a share price of between 60 and 68. However, if we look at the analysis from independent institutions covering Bavarian Nordic, such as Nordea, Danske Bank, and Carnegie, and we actually look at their parameters for assessing the COVID-19 asset, they come up with a higher value, which is actually almost 2.6 billion. So just saying that there's potential in this share. Briefly moving into the breast cancer project, another fatal disease. Every year more than 500,000 women die from this disease. More than 180,000 people are diagnosed with breast cancer from HER2 across the EU and Japan and the US. And the current treatments are very much based on monoclonal antibodies, which today have blockbuster sales of more than $7 billion. Perhaps you know them already. Herceptin and Perjeta are well-known brands in this field. However, these therapeutics come with some serious drawbacks, such as resistance that develop, and that can develop in up to 30% of patients. There's a potential for heart-related side effects, cardiac toxicity, and the administration is rather cumbersome and expensive. And all of these drawbacks we are addressing with a therapeutic vaccine that we are now developing. And this vaccine is based on developing the HER2 antigen in our S2 cells, and we couple it to the VLP, and thereby getting a very highly efficacious therapeutic vaccine. And here we see evidence from an in vitro study where you can see how tumors are developing if they're not treated, as in the left, if they get Herceptin in the middle, or if they get our vaccine, as in the right. And you can see on the top you have trastuzumab, which is the generic name of Herceptin, if they are sensitive to that, and in the lower, if they are resistant to that. So you can see the tumors developing if they're not treated in the lower left corner. In the lower middle, you can also see that with Herceptin, you can develop resistance and the tumors will grow. So what is very encouraging is, if you look at the right panel, that even with trastuzumab-resistant serum, we see a decline in the growth of the tumor. That's super important and promising for this. We are now conducting preclinical studies in mice. This is ongoing with the University of Bologna, with whom we made a research collaboration as soon as possible back in February this year when we acquired the license from AdaptVac. And right now we are actually also expecting to see some results soon. We expect to be able to announce results here in the very beginning of the new year. We are on path with this for clinical trial application before the end of 2022. And importantly is in that preparation, we also have interactions with the regulatory bodies, and that will also have a meeting here in the beginning of next year that can provide us substance that we are going on with this plan for clinical trials. The first clinical study is expected to start in 2023. Just briefly regarding influenza and malaria. In influenza, we are involved in a multi-participant development consortium financed by the EU, where again the ExpreS technology makes the protein antigens for this influenza. Other parties in this development consortium bring other technologies, for example, adjuvant to immunostimulate on the influenza vaccine, as well as even a patch delivery technology. And we are right now exploring, because ExpreS2ion has made the antigens that's going to be researched onwards, how to couple this both with the adjuvants and with this patch technology. So far, it looks very promising. With respect to malaria, we are involved in a handful of different malaria projects. Most important is the clinical stage RH5, so-called blood stage malaria vaccine This was there was a publication announced in April this year about the first clinical study which took place in healthy volunteers. It was called VAC 063 and showed that it was very safe. And going onwards this year, University of Oxford are sponsoring a new study that has initiated in Africa, in Tanzania, in 60 healthy adults and infants. And we are looking very much forward, of course, to see this, the outcome of this. We'll get the first initial results from this in 2023. All right. Moving into our financial situation, we have recently announced our Q3 report, and here you see our quarterly figures across the last 1 to 2 years. On the revenue side, to the left, you see that we have had revenues both from sales of invoiced services as well as from grants. The light blue bars are actually grant income, and you can see it has dominated our income in 2020, obviously because we were involved in getting a lot of grant sponsorship for the COVID-19 project. The last 2 quarters, we are not having that many grant income money, and it just shows the level of our income from clients is actually on a very decent level, I would say. However, if you look in the middle, our burn rate is increasing. We have higher operating costs, and it makes sense if you look at the fact that it's only during the last 2 years we are focusing on developing our own pipeline. Up until 2 years ago, we were looking into the services business. It was a nice little business, but it wasn't that valuable, to be honest. And you've seen the increase in our share price the last 2 years is because we focus on the pipeline business. We're taking some more risk on this, we're burning some more cost on this, but we're also generating much more value. To the right, you see our cash balance. It has evolved dramatically over the last 2 years. We're in a very nice cash position since we made a rights issue in the autumn of 2020, which had 2 additional warrant programs associated with it. So all in all, we have raised approximately 210 million SEK during the last year, out of potentially maximum 216 million SEK from this rights issue, including the warrant, showing that we've had a very nice increase in our share price, and it would make no sense not to fully exercise those warrants as a shareholder. So end of September, we had 140 million SEK in our bank, and that will take us onwards to 2023, and that's good. Our shareholder composition has changed considerably also during the last 2 years. Up until 2 years ago, we were about 1,000 shareholders. More than 95% of our shareholders were from Sweden. That has changed dramatically. During this year, we have increased our shareholder base from 6,000 shareholders to 14,000 shareholders at the end of Q3. And what we see is a change in the composition. So now our Swedish shareholders are less than half of our shareholders. Danish shareholders are more than half of our shareholders. We are fully operating the R&D in Herceptin in the science park just north of Copenhagen, and are getting some attention also from Danish media on our coronavirus vaccine efforts. So that's paved the way for more investment interest also from the Danish community. Interestingly, however, is that we're now also seeing investors from the UK and Germany and France, European countries, where we of course also have ambitions to keep investors interested in our stock across the countries. And regarding our outlook here, near-term outlook, we have some very important triggers here going onwards. If you look at the coronavirus vaccine project, Of course, we are very much reliant on Bavarian Nordic now, conducting the ongoing development. The phase 2 clinical trial, as I mentioned, we expect the outcome of this from the first arm this month in December, which will be very exciting, naturally. And of course, in 2022, we'll see further results from this phase 2 trial when we also see the outcome from the 50 microgram dose and the third arm with the 30 microgram dose as well. In parallel with that, Bavarian Nordic are starting up the phase 3 trial in 2022. Very luckily here in August, they got 800 million Danish kroner or 108 million euro funding from the Danish state to support the phase 3 trial. Super good. And luckily with this, they can get to the market here by early 2023. With breast cancer, as I mentioned, we will be announcing the preclinical proof of concept study here after New Year. And then we'll spend 2022 to scale up the production and prepare for the clinical trial application. We'll do tox studies as well. And hopefully before end of 2022, that's the plan, that we can file for a clinical trial application for a clinical phase 1 trial that we can initiate in 2023. With influenza, we are carrying on under the development consortium, and with malaria, we are focusing on the RH5 blood stage malaria, where we expect clinical headline results in 2023. I believe that was it here for now.
Thank you, Bent. So, very exciting times, and I thought that it would be interesting to hear you expand a little bit. I know it's very difficult for you to discuss this trial on behalf of Bavarian Nordic, but if you could expand a little bit on the endpoints that we should keep in mind as these results roll out during December.
I think, well, it'll be presented, I'm sure, in the same manner as what we saw in August when we presented the first outcome from the first dosing in the first clinical phase 1 trial that was run under the consortium with ExpreS2ion and AdaptVac, under the Prevent nCoV consortium. I'm sure Bavarian Nordic will do the same. I actually don't know the complete protocol for this study.
For example, there are some criteria differing from the first trial, like the 90 days inclusions, that patients can be vaccinated as close as 90 days ahead of receiving your vaccine. So should we expect the same nice figures in this kind of populations, or will you, as a baseline, have other values when comparing the outcome in the current study?
You know, I'm actually just as curious as you, to be honest, and it's a little bit of the backdraw on being having exclusively licensed this, and with this arrangement where we have ExpreS2ion, AdaptVac, and Bavarian Nordic. So I'm looking just as much forward to this as you regarding the outcome from Bavarian Nordic. But I know it's right around the corner.
And in a way, you are shooting on a moving target, like most viruses. They are constantly evolving, trying to come around the immune defenses. And now we are facing a new variant. Will that have any major impact on the ongoing clinical studies, the new variant?
I think, at least in vitro, with the sera coming from these people getting the 100 microgram doses, you can also test against the Omicron variant. I'm sure that will be tested as well. From ExpreS2ion side, I would say it's important to say that we have a production system that allows us to produce any antigen of interest in our system. And of course, when this turned up last week, we immediately initiated ordering the DNA construct and getting on board with making this protein in our system. So, but who knows? Maybe the vaccine in itself actually is protective enough.
I've seen some notices about like 30 mutations in the spike protein currently used. Please help us understand, is that a minor thing for you as the producer of the spike protein? Is that a minor change to the protein, or is it a major undertaking?
It's exactly in line with our mission. We turn complex proteins into tomorrow's vaccines. And it's a complex protein, and we can handle that in expression for sure.
ExpreS2ion Biotechnologies is under a major transformation, as I see it. I mean, you're going from service providing company for research institutions to a vaccine developer. It's a major journey that you're undertaking. Please help us understand a little what this requires from your point of view. Do you have the necessary staff to carry out these new tasks that you're...
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I didn't have time to show the composition of our board, which has renewed this year. We have a 5-person board and got 2 new board members having decades of experience in developing drugs. Furthermore, within ExpreS2ion, also our management has renewed here during this year, and we have the right staff covering our preclinical and clinical development task at the moment. As a company, we are actually now 30 people, which is a doubling compared to last year. When we set out on this journey, we were about 15. And that also goes to show, of course, we're getting the right experienced staff to support us with the scaling up of this.
Okay, last question, if I may. I mean, in my mind, the largest asset in your company is actually your holding in AdaptVac. The 34% holding in AdaptVac. Is there a need for any strategic assessments of this holding? Can you help us understand how you will develop this asset?
So far, we've had a splendid collaboration on the COVID-19 project, and we were allowed to in-license the breast cancer vaccine project from AdaptVac. AdaptVac continues to be a discovery-based company exploring various other assets, and we may be able to extract projects in that context, or AdaptVac can go on to other companies, of course, as they please. We're not a major shareholder nowadays, but we still have a board membership, and we keep track on what they do. And also regarding the cash inflow we can expect from Bavarian Nordic, of course, we also have a dividend policy that can allow for that proceed to move into ExpreS2ion.
I see we have one question from the audience asking you why the regulatory process appears to take a longer time than for the mRNA vaccines, not allowing you to launch already in 2022. Is this the question you like?
The regulatory process as such is not longer. Once you file for an application, it will be the same process as with any others, but the duration of the development takes its time. And of course, messenger RNA vaccines have been blessed in the beginning from not having to conduct all the trials that we had to do to understand the safety and all the parameters needed before regulatory approval. So, yeah, that's how it is.
Okay, that concludes our questions to Bent Frandsen, CEO, ExpreS2ion Biotechnology. Hope to hear from you soon again.
Thank you, Sten.
Thank you.